Hey, I'm Sheena Shuey. I'm a registered social worker and host of the 4Q podcast. I'm passionate about normalising, not pathologising life, and that's not easy. So each episode, I have amazing guests on to share the messy, beautiful ups and downs of life in 4 key questions with tips and tricks along the way. There are moments in life where you can embrace your story and understand that it's okay not to feel okay sometimes. So let's get into it. This is the 4Q podcast. Hello and welcome back to the 4Q podcast. My name is Sheena Shuey and I'm the owner, founder and director of both Savasana Collective Holistic Psychology, Coaching and Social Work and Therapist VA, where we help health professionals get their businesses started and off the ground. So today we're going to be talking about overthinking and anxiety and ADHD and all the things because I think one of the most common things that women talk to me about when they first engage in any of my services is the overthinking. So let's jump into a few redefining things. So we're reflecting on the topic of overthinking and anxiety and ADHD and what's driving it? What's driving this overthinking? So if we redefine this for a moment, I want to make sure that we talk about the difference between anxious thoughts versus stress. And I want to talk about the difference between planning and ruminating. So first thing we need to realize is that if we are in a stressful situation, so the example I often give is if you have an exam on today, think back to your uni days or even high school days or whatever, and you have an exam on that day, it is normal to have stressful thoughts of, I hope I did enough, I wonder what's on the test, did I work hard enough? I hope I know the content, all of those things. That is really normal. Now, what a normal stress cycle looks like versus an anxious cycle is you stress about the exam, but you do the exam and then generally afterwards, the stress levels start to go down. Okay, that's done. On to the next. I did my best, whatever. The difference when it's anxiety is same exam, but you start to go, what if thoughts? What if I fail this exam? And then that means I fail the subject. And if I fail the subject, will I be able to pass my course? And if I can't pass my course, what job will I get? And I don't want to do this. And what if this? And what if I can't pay my bills? And all the things. How would I catch up? What? So it's what if thoughts. What if thoughts are anxiety. So stress thoughts are a normal sort of reaction to something stressful happening and they subside. Anxious thoughts are generally what if thoughts and they generally don't subside after the exam. So after the event or the exam in this example, the person probably still feels anxious. Oh my God, did I do enough? What if this? What if this? What if this? They're sort of having trouble letting go. So that's one. And please know that stressful thoughts are normal. They're part of life. And even anxious thoughts are normal sometimes. But there is a difference between planning and ruminating. So anxiety comes from our fear centers in the brain. Our brain is still in its primal evolutionary state of hunter-gatherers, okay? We have the same brain. So think back then. Our brains needed to determine what was going to kill us and what was going to keep us alive. So things like food, water, staying in the group, all of those things keep us alive. Things that might kill us is being abandoned by the group, a threat, a danger, all of those things. We had to tell our brain what was a threat or a danger with our thoughts. Nowadays, we don't have those same threats and dangers but we still have the same reactions, life or death reactions to things. And so our thoughts really do end up making us feel like it's so intense. Like I need to, it can be really overwhelming, which leads to the overthinking of what if this, what if that, what if this. And so planning is normal for an anxious brain. So if you're in that anxious spiral, it's okay for your brain to go, okay, I have this big thing. If it doesn't work out, this is going to happen. So these are the things I need to put in place. Let me put those in place, and then I'm going to feel a bit better. And generally that's okay. That's planning. So if you've got an event and you need to do certain things to make sure the event goes well, and maybe there are real consequences if the event doesn't go well, that's okay. It's okay to sort of plan ahead, and it gives your brain some relief. That's okay. Planning. But ruminating is not being able to shut it off, right? The overthinking, going back and forth, and what if this and what if that, and going back and sort of not being productive in it, sort of being stuck in the thinking, but not taking action, and therefore not really getting any relief. And so you can see the difference there. I hope that's clear to you. Now, the thing that drives the overthinking, what is it that actually drives overthinking? There are a number of things, but generally it's being stuck in fight or flight mode. So again, if you're new here and you haven't heard me talk about the window of tolerance or the 4F model, basically we've got two modes in our body. We have a really anxious, adrenaline-fueled, cortisol-fueled kind of action-taking mode, boost mode, where we're really running on fight or flight, right? We cannot maintain that for long periods, which leads to burnout. But that is what we call a over-aroused nervous system. And then the other side of that window, if you want to call it, is hypo, which is more of the freeze and the fawn response. Freeze being when we're paralyzed and we just go, I'm done. I'm emotionally checked out. I'm done. There's nothing left in the tank, and it's sort of scrolling endlessly, not really taking anything in, and just sort of being emotionally flat. And then fawn is submitting your own needs. Whatever you want to do, whatever's easy. This is too overwhelming for me. I'm shutting down. Like, let's just do your thing. I don't have any fight left. I couldn't be bothered articulating my needs. Like, I don't want to be seen as difficult. Let's just do your thing. But today, we're focusing on fight or flight, because that's where a lot of overthinking happens. That really leads to anxiety, because the overthinking that happens when you're in freeze mode is more depressive thoughts. So it's usually looking at the past and beating yourself up, like, why did I do that? I could have done better. Whereas anxious thoughts tend to be future orientated. Overthinking tends to happen future orientation. So that is when you're stuck in fight or flight. And so the 3 tips I want to give you around managing the overthinking, the first one is actually just trying to regulate your nervous system, so that if you're more regulated, if you're within your window of what you can tolerate from life, you're not going to overthink as much. You're not going to be at a level 10 all the time. So if you can imagine, 10 is that fight or flight, anxious, hyper aroused, whoa, go state, right? We want to stop you from getting to a 10. So if you start your day at, a 1 or a 2, and then the kids do this, or, you've got to get ready and you've got to do this, maybe you'll back up to like a 5 out of 10. What can we do to take 5 minutes to bring you back down? Maybe it's before you go into work, after you drop the kids off at daycare, before you work from home, whatever it is that day. Just taking 5 or 10 minutes to just be still. Do something to bring you back down, whether it's just sitting outside in the backyard, drinking a cup of tea, if it's sitting in the car and doing a guided visualization, if it's just listening to some music and just chilling out for 5 minutes without actually scrolling endlessly. Whatever the thing that's going to help you just chill out for 5 minutes, drinking your coffee mindfully, whatever it is, what we're trying to do is get you from a 5 maybe back down to a 4 or a 3, so that if something stressful does happen, you're not jumping up straight to an 8. Maybe you're jumping up to a 6 or a 7 out of 10. So that's the first tip, is trying to get little mindful moments throughout the day, maybe 3 times a day, to just bring you down a point or 2, so that you feel more regulated, because a more calm, collected self is less likely to overthink. And if you do overthink, you're more likely to catch yourself and be able to bring yourself back. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is eat the frog. If you haven't heard of this concept, I can put some links to it, but basically it's this concept of doing the hardest thing first. I think it comes from Brian Tracy. I'll put it in the show notes once I recall. But it's this concept of do the hardest thing on your list first, and then the rest of your day is going to flow better. So often we have some email we don't want to send, a phone call we don't want to make, a project we don't want to start, and we kind of hang it around and leave on it, but it adds to our sort of background to-do list. It adds to our dysregulation, because there's this looming feeling of, I've got to do this thing. And remember, our primal brain doesn't know the difference between life or death. It just knows, okay, that thing must be dangerous, so we need to be worried about it, right? It doesn't know that it's just a pile of laundry that's not going to kill you. But if you're avoiding something or worried about something, the thoughts, your body and your brain goes, this must be a threat. So eat the frog. Practice doing the hardest thing first. So I have found this has been a huge thing, a huge game changer for myself and my productivity. It's kind of like I don't want to get other jobs done if I know I've got to do that job at the end of the day. But if I get it done first, it's like, okay, I have ticked a major box, and I find I get a bit of a lift from that and keep going. So that's tip number 2. So tip number 1, mindful moments. Tip number 2, eat the frog. And the third tip is, if you're really in it, if you are overthinking right now, or you're just having a moment where you're catching yourself spiraling, get a pen, get a paper, and just write down all those things on your to-do list that are sort of ticking away in your brain, all the things you're overthinking, perhaps. So just write them down, big list, get as many of you as you can out, and then you might have 20 things written down, or 20 to-dos even. All I want you to do then is highlight just 3. The most urgent or important 3, and don't worry about the rest for now. Focus on those 3, and then if you get those 3 done, come back to the list and do another 3. But just sort of keep doing that. And if you only get the most important 3 done, good enough. But it's more so just about getting your thoughts out with a pen and paper. There is something so powerful about this. And I do encourage pen and paper rather than a computer, because we're using our hands to write and our eyes and all of that in a more interactive way, we actually engage both hemispheres of your brain when we are writing. So I really encourage you to try and write the list out, because it's much more powerful and cathartic than trying to type it out. So just to summarize, there's a difference, everything we talked about today, there's anxious thoughts versus stressful thoughts. So try to know the difference for yourself. There's a difference between planning and taking action and just ruminating on your thoughts. And a lot of the big drivers of the overthinking is a hyper-aroused fight or flight nervous system. So 3 tips you can do to manage that is taking those mindful moments throughout the day to regulate your nervous system so you're less likely to get into an overthinking state. Second tip is eat the frog. So do the hardest thing first. And again, that way the threat is removed. And the third thing is if you're in it, do a brain dump. Get it all out, highlight the top 3, and then and sort of chip away at it. And again, it's almost an eat the frog strategy too. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's really clear to you. Please reach out and let me know if that was a helpful episode to you. I always love hearing all your stories about the podcast and your positive ideas and thoughts. And of course, if you want to leave a review, that would be amazing. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead of you. And I will catch you next episode for the 4Q podcast. Bye for now.